Sup, everyone. So I got to thinking recently about this whole debate about the theodicy and the problem of evil. Theologians have been batting this around for ages. It's like, if a good God exists, why is there so much evil in the world? It's a tough issue, and it's a significant argument employed by many religious skeptics. I personally think it's a legitimate gripe. If one assumes that a God does exist and that it's benevolent and or the universal moral lawgiver, it presents a bit of a problem. But then I began to think about it, and it was like, what if we operate from the assumption that one or more deities do exist, but not necessarily in an omnibenevolent form? It seems to me that this debate between religious skeptics and theists are so often conducted within the understood context established by the Abrahamic faiths. In other words, with the understanding that if a God exists, that it must have, as William Lane Craig might say, a holy and loving nature. That's probably because many of us atheists were raised in one of the monotheistic religions and thus have more knowledge about that framework than others, and also because most of the people pushing for beliefs in gods nowadays also come from one of the Abrahamic faiths. But then, if we do raise the possibility of a god or god existing that aren't necessarily morally perfect, what does that look like? Basically, we have positions that I think have been largely left untouched for quite a while in this debate over whether gods exist. Those positions are Dystheism and Maltheism, which, if valid, would present deities that are essentially immune from this whole theodicy issue. Now, Dystheism is basically this idea that one or more gods do exist, but they are not wholly good. In a dystheistic universe, a god can behave kindly, but is also capable of behaving immorally. Some of the trickster gods from various polytheistic religions come to mind. They would be a pretty good example of dystheistic gods. You know the ones, the deities and spirits who sometimes play cruel pranks on people for petty reasons or, just because they find it fun. Loki from Norse mythology would be considered a dystheistic deity. Going even further down this path, there's Maltheism, which is a belief that deities exist, but are cruel and evil and not worthy of worship. We can even take this point of saying that such a god or gods might exist to the point of saying that they might be omni-malevolent and the source of evil rather than omni-benevolent. Essentially, we're talking about an evil spirit, but with unlimited power and knowledge. This, of course, can relate to misotheism as well, which can be described as resistance to gods. By the way, when theists accuse you of actually believing in their god but then hating their god, they are actually accusing you of holding this position of misotheism, not true atheism. Just thought I'd put that out there so you can actually put a name to it. Anyway, I think it's an interesting topic, and I personally have an opinion, but I'm kind of interested in hearing the thoughts of others on this. Let me know what you think. Do you think that we have become way too wrapped up in the framework that the Abrahamic faiths have created in regards to what kind of deities could exist? And do you think we need to give Dystheism and Maltheism seats at the table in this debate over whether gods exist? Let me know. As always, answer the questions by questioning the answers.